us, mate, but you talked us into Rabbitohs, so
Fucking should have won the fucking game.
could have swept that.
Should have won the fucking game, cunt. Fucking grim. Oh well. Grim things come in threes.
Can you tilt your camera? It looks like I'm a bit higher up and you can see.
I can try.
Because it's not like you need space above your head, is it?
We're ready. Give me a sec. Alright, we are good to go. G'day guys, welcome once again to the Tripod where we break down every NRL game every week from a betting perspective. This week we will be going through not necessarily the debacle that was round 21, but I think it was, another losing round, unfortunately. So that makes it 3 in a row. Nothing that we want to certainly brag about, but these things happen. In betting, you do tend to go on runs of wins and losses, and this just happens to be a pretty shitty run lately. Not going to say we were necessarily unlucky, but I do think that we certainly had some bad luck go against us, starting with, or to end it with the Storm game just then. But Jacob, how are you, mate? It looks like you are taking a Tinder profile pic with the way you're lying there.
Oh, mate, I hate technology about everything that could possibly go wrong. I'm sitting on the floor to do this. Look, the purpose of our Sunday recap pod is not to make excuses for the losses and brag about the winners. It's to talk about what we learned, especially if there's games people didn't catch. So we'll go through game by game, but I will say this, another losing round, and since I've been back, we haven't won anything.
Go back
and
overseas,
neither have
mate.
I. Yeah, maybe I am the death knell. But if you go game by game and you look at the bets we had, there's none you really regret. Like you go a week ago, we got blitzed off the park and you say we should have never taken that team in that spot. But this weekend, we can go and we will go game by game. And you're happy with those bets, the closing numbers, and then just the way that the game's played out. Very few bounces our way this weekend.
Oh, definitely. And I would almost say that this is one of those weeks where it's almost like a week of missed opportunities, I would say, for us. I think we were a bit snake bitten by last week. And although we took a lot of the ugly teams that, we have been taking for 5 years and winning on, we probably had less bets than we would have normally on them just because we got absolutely butt-fucked last week. But let's start with what we just saw, which was the Storm beating the Rabbits 26-16. I twisted Jacob's arm to take the Rabbits in this one, and we did. And to be honest, this is one of the games where we did get unlucky. We had a sweep. We were going 3-0 until that last Storm try, which they didn't need, up 20-16. And honestly, I thought that the Rabbits were the better team from probably the 15-minute mark up until probably midway through the second half. I thought they played well. They fought hard. But when you get yourself into a 12-0 hole against a team like the Storm, it is very tough to come back. One thing I would like to mention, I know there's been a lot of comments, especially in our game thread, about the penalty count there. People crying about, saying, the Rabbits were getting a nine penalty count run. That's bullshit. But I do think that every single one of those penalties was warranted. And look, while I'm not going to say that necessarily a Storm player should have been sent off during that 9-0 penalty run, I do think that there needs to be some more clarity in regards to that rule. It has to be, 3 pens in a row, you get a warning, the fourth one is a sin bin. So it seems to be one of those rules where the ref just makes it up on the fly. But certainly 9 pens in a row is unacceptable, and that needs to end somewhere in there with a sin bin. What do you think?
Well, yeah, and just to clarify, because there was a Storm player sin binned, it was Kaufusi, but that was actually for a professional
Correct.
foul, not for runner penalties. Not just 9 penalties in a row to the Rabbitohs without a sin bin, without even a warning.
Yeah,
so it is
that's
interesting,
right.
But we should say as well, the Rabbitohs did ride that 9 penalty run back to a 12 all, and then Kaufusi got put in the bin or he got put in the bin at 12-6. I think they
Correct.
got back to
Yes.
12 all. So you're 12 all second half playing with an extra man. We got plus 6.5. Now, there were quite a few late personnel changes, but they went in both directions. We lost Sammy Burgess and Braden Burns for the Bunnies. But to be fair, the Storm had to reshuffle as well. Debut that Hines at fullback because Pappenhausen and Jerome Hughes were out. Brandon Smith was out. Of course, Welsh ruled out last week. So it's still just impressive. Take your hat off to the Storm. As you say, when the score was, 20-16, it's in the balance. Either team can win. All our bets are winning. The late try flips two winners into two losses. So we lost the round by 4 best bets. So that's it right there. But this whole round, the tail of the tape for me is late tries that flipped a bunch of tips, or the late try that wasn't there in a couple of other games that would have made us clean up. Let's go game by game, I guess.
100%. Yeah, let's rewind to Thursday night. It was the Broncos beating the Cowboys 18-14 in what was, I think, one of the ugliest fucking games of NRL that I've ever watched in my life. And I know that we disagreed on the side, but I mentioned that I fucking wish that we had a bet on this game, because watching that without a punt on was absolutely painful. 27 errors between the two teams combined. Just absolutely no flow to the game whatsoever. And watching that game, you really realise that both of these teams, not just the Cowboys, both of these teams are not top 8 material. And even if the Broncos do sneak into the 8, they are not going to do any damage whatsoever there. So just a really ugly game, but to the Broncos' credit, they hold on, get the late try, get a lucky win there, and their top 8 hopes are still alive.
Yeah, so we have a rule between us. Like, most of the time we agree. You'd like to think we would with our approach that's worked for 5 seasons. With the process that makes us find value. We're often thinking along the same lines. Sometimes we disagree, and we usually know when we're disagreeing, we're butting heads. Neither of us probably is on a 60% winner, and we're happy to leave it. But we have a bit of a rule. If you're going to throw your body in front of a bet, and I wanted to take the Cowboys plus the points, and you wanted to take the Broncos, laying a small number, you've got to be willing to bet it. So we bet each other on that game. So congratulations to you, because bogus 6 again, and, everyone stands still for a flat pass and a one-handed pickup try on the bell.
True.
Is the difference in that game. And that could be so huge for Brisbane.
Just wanted
as you say,
more.
They can make the finals. And yeah, it was ugly. It was still enjoyable for me. I didn't enjoy the finish by any means, but I was on the edge of my seat because that game was in the balance. I do love rugby league. Sometimes I see the comments and people saying that they hate the game, they want to fork their eye out and stuff. But if you've got money on a game and it's in the balance, then sometimes you can find some beauty in that.
Oh, definitely. I guess I'm saying if you didn't have a punt on that game, it would have been painful to watch.
True.
Next up, we had what was one of the bigger upsets of the round. We had the Warriors beating Manly outright 24-16. We did have 3 plays on the game. Did go 3-0. And this is one of those ones where I was kind of talking about it. It might just be a week of kind of missed opportunities and not capitalising on bets as much as we probably should. We knew the Warriors were probably the sharp side. They get beat the week before, embarrassed even, and Manly has a big win the week before. We always take, the ugly team against the red hot team. But we did have a worry, and both of us did, that the straw that broke, the Warriors back. That had, a couple of bad calls go against them to lose close games. Now they're out of the 8. They lost again last week. And we just thought, fucking hell, is this the week that they actually fold? We knew that they were the sharp side, so we tread very, very cautiously in this one and only had 3 plays on the game, and 2 of those were in relation to the under, and that was all weather-related. I mean, we got 40.5 as the total, which was sharp, because I think the game might have closed 36.5. But, another one of those ones where there was just that one factor. Will the Warriors actually give up in this one, even though we knew they were the sharp side? Probably should have had a few more bets on them, but Manly just flat for like the first 60 minutes of the game. Just came out absolutely flat, and the Warriors pounced, and it really shouldn't have even been that close. The Warriors towed them up.
But credit to the Warriors, and hey, who told you that it wouldn't be this easy in round 21, that all the logical favourites that are going to win will just all get up and win 13 plus? It just doesn't happen in the NRL. And although we were a bit cautious, we played unders because we did believe the Warriors would come out and show effort. 6 losses in a row, utterly embarrassed the previous Friday night. And we got the effort out of the Warriors. They were a completely different side. And you got to shout out a guy like Harris Tavita. I mean, we questioned when they signed Nicarima. Why? Harris Tavita's emerged. You got Green, who kind of steadies the ship. Harris Tavita on both sides of the footy, throws his body everywhere in defence, and he's a spark in attack. And of course Rogers ever present and had a great hand in a beautiful try that helped them build a lead. If you didn't watch the game, what was the comeback? The Warriors were up 18-0, and Manly put on I think 4 tries in the final 12 minutes.
I think 3,
and
right?
had them or 3. Can't was it 3?
Three in like 10 minutes because it was 24-16. Yeah.
Yep, and they blitzed them, got it within 2 points.
Yep.
Only a misconversion away from tying the game. In the end, the Warriors get a late try. Manly will be okay. I think it was a little bit of an ambush by the Warriors, and at least a good start to our round for the tips.
Yeah, definitely. And before we get to the next game, I'll address a couple of questions there. Lewis is asking thoughts on Canberra +8 next week. Seems way too high. I believe they're playing the Storm in Melbourne. It does seem a little bit too high, but I feel like there's not a huge hurry on that one, seeing as the Raiders just lost and the Storm just won, so you can probably hold out and that line's not going anywhere, that's for sure. If anything, might trickle up, but 8 does seem a little bit too high there. The Panthers beat the Sharks 26-20, didn't have a play on this game either, but the Panthers, what an awesome performance by them after being pretty dismal for 2 weeks in a row. Season's on the line at home, and they really put their foot down from the opening whistle, and the Sharks did look flat from the very beginning, but the Panthers, they looked desperate, and they should have been. Off 2 pretty bad losses, their final 8 hopes were, not slipping out of their grasp, but were certainly not looking as confident as they were 3 weeks ago. And on top of that, you lose Maloney, but I thought that, Cleary had a really good game, and I'll tell you who else had a good game, Matt Burton. Lanky fucking dude in the halves that doesn't even look like he should be playing NRL. Kind of looks like a body type of like an AFL player, kind of gangly. But he was great. The ability of his kicks to control the tempo of the game, to find touch, he was very, very composed and he was very impressive. But overall, I just thought that the Panthers wanted it more. Their forwards ran it harder and they completely deserved the win. And once again, it's one of those ones where, a lot of people sort of couldn't see the Sharks losing after the performance that they put in last week against the Rabbits. But, as you say all the time, Jacob, no team is as bad as their worst performance and no team is as good as their best performance. And the Sharks' best performance of the season was last week and they couldn't back it up.
And you tried to tell everyone this, and you wanted us to put some best bets on the Panthers. You love the spot for them, and I was the one that held us back.
I can understand not wanting to.
Yeah, it's a funny one because the players that took the field for the Sharks, I still feel that was a fairly stronger unit than who Panthers had to play. Like, as you say, Burton debuting, and a lot of things, they just were able to harness momentum early. Like, they had a gale force wind behind them. You talk about the kicking of Burton. I mean, how many times did he kick and it just took off along the ground and it trickled out a metre or 2 before the corner flag? And I feel like you can call them brilliant kicks, but I mean, none of them carried it through to the in-goal.
True.
They just mounted so much pressure on the Sharks. The Sharks invited a lot of pressure too, with several early errors and then 5th tackle penalties and a turnover with a minute to go in the half, and you can see the try on the final play. As you say, Cleary had to step up, and he did. I think he had a hand in multiple tries. So then it was an almost unassailable lead because what was it, about 20 points to 6 at half time for the Sharks. So for the Panthers. So for a young side that had a few inexperienced players, but they're playing at home with the energy and the confidence off that start, it ultimately was enough because the Sharkies bloody had them sweating. Sharkies coming all the way back at them and pulled it close and had opportunities and had overlaps. Could not quite get there, but in the end, as you say, deserved win for the Panthers. The Sharkies, you still see the potential that's there, and if they hadn't had such a bad start, they could have probably won that game too.
Oh, absolutely. And then next up, we had the Dragons beating the Titans 40-28. This was the toilet bowl, I guess. 2 teams that are out of the 8 now. The Dragons pretty much just out of contention of the 8 last week, and the Titans have been, obviously out of contention for a long, long time. But I guess the one takeaway from this one, I know we were on the Titans in the end. The line just crept up a little bit too high. They had that open letter out to their fans. We're going to put in for you guys this week. And they did to an extent on offense. But defense, I think, for both teams was very, very much optional in this one. But we got really, I'm not going to say like super unlucky, but I mean, we have +5.5 in both halves. They lose both halves by 6 exactly. We have +10. They lose the game by 12. But one takeaway from this one, I guess, and it is, a simple kind of betting theory that we do subscribe to, is that once you do get 2 teams that not necessarily shit, but are out of contention for the 8, these games generally do trend towards the over. And, in hindsight, I guess it's easy to say, but we should have probably had a few more plays on the over, because when two teams are completely out of it, and you saw what happened. I mean, this was a prime example. They do throw it around a little bit more, throw caution to the wind, and they don't care as much on defense. So moving forward for the last sort of 5 rounds of the season, I think, definitely if we ever find ourselves in a situation like this again, especially a daytime game with two teams that don't need the win, I think we should be looking a bit more heavily at taking some overs.
Yes, this was the game where a letter cost us a bunch of money.
True.
Because
I
we said on Wednesday,
sent that to you.
Yeah, we said on Wednesday night when we previewed the game that the Titans were the side that nobody would want any part of in round 21, and we weren't sure if we did either, because it just seemed like they had no heart and soul of that team. So even though the line was juicy, the talent, well, they've got some first-grade players, but they've just got no heart. But then Kevin Proctor comes out with an open letter to the fans, promising that they will not give up, they will keep fighting, that they felt humiliated and embarrassed on the previous Sunday. And I felt like that could be the catalyst that we need, that they draw a line in the sand. And why come out with an open letter for an away game unless you actually believe that there is still a little bit of fight left in the team? That changed us from betting overs, which we'd spoken about on Wednesday night, to leaning more of our plays towards the Titans. And as you say, like the first half, for example, we lose the half by 6 points. I mean, there is a bit of bad luck in that the 2 Dragons tries and the first 2 tries that got them a lead are both grubbers that are both, but basically AJ Brimson slips over, the Titans fullback, both times, doesn't get to, and both times a Dragons forward who's tracking along. It's not a planned kick, grounds it. I mean, that is quite unlucky because as an underdog, you can't suffer multiple early unlucky tries where your fullback can't get to the ball because he falls over. So then from there, it was uphill battle. But in saying all that, the Titans are within 8. We're still going to win our second half handicap, our game handicap, until 90 seconds to go, another try off a kick. Bryce Cartwright, he was not bothered about, I don't know if he knows about sprinting for the ball. He wasn't interested in getting there first, so the Dragons did and hurt us.
Bryce Cartwright is the worst player in the NRL. Then next up, a game that we did like. We both liked the Eels. They do get the win over the Knights, 20-14, and this has kind of been the story of our year. We fucking like a team. They cover the spread. We have 5 best bets, yet we only go 3 and 2, which is a little bit disappointing because honestly, we should have won more than that. And the Eels, I know they were up, 8-0 at halftime. Should have been 12-0. Moses missing a couple of conversions, one very easy, and he's been kicking fairly well this year. And I know it doesn't seem...
Just on that point, I'll interrupt you and then you continue. Kicking fairly well. There's a fucking video on Facebook this week of him kicking a goal like 5 meters from inside the in-goal, curling it around. He has the fucking nerve to miss 3 times this week, including one from in front.
Unbelievable.
And I mean, when you summarize our tips, I mean, how many fucking best bets did that cost us alone?
Oh, 100%.
But please carry on.
We have been fucked by conversions this year, but I'm just going to say, especially with a team like the Knights, whose finals hopes are dwindling, and it just takes a little bit to make them possibly even give up in this one. And you go into the half maybe 12-0 up, and there's every chance that the Knights just fold. But at 8-0, you still have some belief there. And this is one of those things with the Eels, and I was going to say this just as an aside for people that are actually margin betting with the Eels. The last 2 weeks, the Eels have had every opportunity to put their team away. The Dragons and now the Knights, they've been up, they're up 10 at halftime against the Dragons, up 8 at halftime against the Knights. And, they've been up about 6 or so, with 20 minutes left. Both times they have played super, super conservatively, more so than I've seen all season long from this Eels team. So, I'd just say, be cautious if you are betting the Eels 13+, because judging by the last 2 weeks, if they're up, 6 or 8 points in the final 20 minutes, it seems like this has now become a habit for them where they just try and play super conservative and keep the lead and don't try and extend it. Is that kind of what you've picked up? I know you've only been back for a couple of weeks, but you have seen the last 2 Eels games seems like they've been way conservative with the lead in the last quarter of the game.
100%. They have not landed that knockout blow because they've had a lead against an opponent that kind of wants to give up. The opponent has hung tough, but the Eels are, up a converted try or more, and they're getting the repeat sets, and they're going away from what they've been doing earlier in the game that got them that lead. I don't know if it's a guaranteed trend that's going to continue, or it means that the last two Eels scorelines have been deceiving because they really could have won them both by double digits. And had they cracked that final try, and man, they got opportunities. The Knights are ready to give up and die. The Knights are dropping it first tackle, last few minutes. The Eels are getting it, but then just happy to ruck it up on the goal line. But I tell you, I do have some information that I think is really valuable for punters to take away, and that is that I just wouldn't want my money anywhere near the Knights. The final score is deceiving here. Now, it's 4 tries to 2. You talk about Mitchell Moses couldn't kick a goal, whereas the Knights converted both tries and got a penalty. What 2 tries they got were 2 tries in about 4 minutes. Both the same try, basically, put a bomb up, and a Knights player, credit to them, it's athletic and a desire to fly in the air and catch the ball. In one case, I think it was Barnett, acrobatic try and scores and brings them back in the game. And then I think he brings down another one and they fling it out to Kenny Dow, and they put on 12 quick points to actually take the lead against the Eels, and the Eels were a bit shocked, and then the Eels got back on top. But what I said about the Knights the week before as well, when we were so disappointed against Manly, where's the attack coming from? The attack is so bad in this team, and it shouldn't be that bad for a team that has Kalen Ponga, who's a superstar of the game, and Mitchell Pearce, who was the form 7 of the comp.
His form has dropped off a little bit.
And Ponga's definitely not 100%. And that's why I wouldn't want on the Knights. Ponga's not running the ball. Ponga, even on kick returns where you want him running in open space, he's always looking for the pass. He looks like Darius Boyd out there, not wanting to hit up. And that's
take that back.
Darius Boyd does it for self-preservation, but Ponga's doing it because I think he's carrying something. I think where it happened, I'm not sure if the origin period and everything has caught up with him. And so their attack is so one-dimensional, they could never really threaten. As I say, you get 2 tries from bombs, and that's all you got all game, and they should have lost by a lot more. And Nathan Brown, in the press conference, says the phrase, close game, about 100 times. We've lost close games, another close game. We're going well, it's a close game. The desire's there, close game. There wasn't even a close game. If you watched it, the Eels were all over them. It's so disappointing that we only went 3-2.
Oh, 100%. And then moving on to the Bulldogs beating the Tigers 18-16. That was a result that surprised me. I mean, by no means did I think that the Tigers were a lock. I mean, obviously they were 4.5-point favourites playing away from home. But yeah, once you're up, what were they up? 8-0 after the first half. You kind of think at that point, Bulldogs with not many points in them, you think, Tigers, I guess in a pretty much must-win game for their finals hopes, you think that they should go away with this. But the start of the second half was just diabolical for the Tigers. You concede 3 tries in the space of 11 minutes, and then it's pretty much over, and the Tigers just ground them down. So really, the Bulldogs scored 3 tries in 11 minutes, and that was it for the entire game. I really thought the Tigers could, hold them out there, that they would get this win in a must-win situation. But of course not. And of course, once again, it's one of those ones where, we have Dogs, under 16.5. They haven't been converting great all year, but they make all 3. But yeah, look, I'll say this, you were right. The Dogs, have actually been pretty decent. And I know that I hate the fucking Bulldogs. I hate betting on the Bulldogs, and I don't think I bet on them once while you're away. But you cannot ignore their effort. They have been out of finals contention for a long, long time now, and they have won 4 of their last 6 games, and the 2 games that they lost were pretty close, and they put in. So you cannot ignore this the Bulldogs' effort. For some reason, they've picked up their effort and their play in the last half of the season now that they're completely out of it. But that is a huge blow for the Tigers' final 8 hopes.
The Tigers had to have that one. We can talk about how it ended too. Brutal ending of goal kicking a theme this weekend. Yeah, the Dogs 4 wins out of the last 6, and obviously all as underdogs as well. So it is really impressive, and it was a good fight. I mean, the 3 tries in 11 minutes, really it's 2 quick tries right after halftime, pulls the game right back into the balance there. And I mean, obviously they grabbed the lead at 12-8, and then the Tigers are back on the attack, and an awful intercept pass by Benji when they have a 3-on-2. So I feel like that's not even just which lands in the lap. I think it was Nick Meaney who goes the distance and scores. So then it's 18-8. But, I mean, that's a try-scoring opportunity for the Tigers. So that's maybe a 10, 12-point swing right there in a balanced game. And then they're down 10, the Tigers, and you're thinking, well, this is going to be really tough for them to come back. They're not a team that can chase points. On that note, I mean, Moses Mbai, the captain, playing in the centres, doing pretty well in the centres because he's not that threatening as a fullback, but he does his job in centres. I mean, he starts the game clearly with an issue in the hip. It looked like a groin injury. His very first run of the game, he just like loafs into it before contact. So I was like, it picked up my attention. I'm like, what happened? What's happened to him there? And then he got the ball again on an overlap.
In the pre-game
he injured it in the warm-up. But Maguire, who ended Greg Inglis's career because he made him play on an ACL. I mean, Mbai would have been too scared to say, I can't go. So you kill your team when your starting backline player and captain is out there for 3 minutes, can't walk. He actually has a try assist because he got thrown the ball when they had a overlap and he just fell to the ground untouched but assisted on a try. But he's out, and then Robbie Farah hurt his knee as well. So they were down on troops. They came back. They scored 2 tries late when they were down 10. Only problem was missed both conversions, especially the one to tie late. And that was with the Dogs with a man in the bin. So, I mean, you tie the game there.
Bullshit
it was.
Bin, to be fair.
Both sin bins were bullshit. But especially that one was just like, we've sin bin one bloke on one side. We've got a sin bin on the other side. It's out of control. And you think about that Eels sin bin last week. They overreact.
You can't fucking pull
Yes, and it was bullshit. But my point is really that the Tigers coming back, they score the 2 tries. They have the extra man. They have the momentum. It's a very it's a very convertible kick. You tie the game. The Tigers probably go on and win. So you miss that. Sure. That is a brutal loss. And, of course, cost us a couple more tips. So, I mean, we had like Dogs under 16.5, scored 18 points, and they won the game.
So you had a multi, that was obviously paying out close to 5 figures. You had Tigers to win, but, I mean, obviously that shanked conversion.
Tigers plus 1.5 as well, so they could have lost the golden point.
If he converts that, you're pretty much guaranteed your 5 figures. So, Robbie, don't feel too bad. It's just a comment coming through, Jacob, that a bloke had $100 on that game to go to extra time at 17-1, which is pretty brutal as well. But don't feel too bad, Robbie. That kick cost Jacob close to 5 figures. And that's it. No, Roosters
gotta talk about.
Not it. I don't want to talk about this game. It was a very good game, to be fair. Roosters beat the Raiders 22-18. Fairly high quality match, in my opinion. I mean, not that I'm going to say that Roosters definitely deserved to win. I thought it was a pretty even game, to be honest. Could have gone either way. Not going to make excuses or anything, but at the end of the day, that Latrell Mitchell try that shouldn't have been a try was the difference. I mean, it was 4 tries to 3, and once again, we have 5 bets on the game, and if that try isn't a try, we sweep the game pretty much. We cash the first half handicap, we cash Raiders plus half a try, Roosters under 3.5 tries, Mechanical Raiders plus 2. We cash all of those, but yeah, once again, it's one of those ones where Raiders were very, very solid. But yeah, Roosters, obviously we know that they are the most talented team in the comp, and when they can put on some of those plays, they are electric, even though they're short-handed. Cooper Cronk played well. I thought Latrell was awesome as well. But yeah, Raiders are very, very solid. I guess the issue with this Raiders team, and this is kind of one of the reasons why, we wanted to take them in a regular season game. I think, the Raiders' ceiling in terms of how well that team as a whole can play is capped. It's capped at, a decent level. Obviously we've seen they're a top 4 team. But when they come up against these teams like the Storm, like the Roosters, when these teams are on, there's nothing that this Raiders side can do. And in order for them to win, the Roosters had to be a little bit off, and they weren't today. But in saying that, I thought it was a fairly even game. Could have gone either way. Very unlucky to go 1-4.
Yeah, I thought the Raiders were going to win the game, and especially to get them at an underdog, I thought they were really good bets. And don't regret.
Which
they do
that's
close
all
the
you can hope for, really.
And now it was never a guarantee. We know how good the Roosters are. We speak about that, and it was obviously an important game for the Roosters too, because these sides are equal second. Just a few points differential between them. Had the Raiders won this game, that may be the difference between whether the Roosters are playing in Sydney in week 1 of the finals or down in Melbourne or down in Canberra. They wanted to win the game, but you talk about they've got more talent. But obviously Boyd Cordner, Jake Friend, Takiaho still on the sidelines. There were lots of reasons to love the Raiders. And yeah, I mean, the Raiders who have been really defensively stout all year, you're thinking, how did they concede 22 points? And we had like Roosters under 3.5 tries, everything like that. Well, I mean, two tries
kicks.
directly off bombs.
Yeah.
2 tries off bomb, and 1 absolute bullshit because Nickel Klostad jumps to catch the ball, and the Roosters are smart. They know what they're doing. They sprint right almost into the fullback who's catching it, but they keep their eye like on the ball to make it look like it's a contest. He gets taken out. It's really dangerous. You know, I've seen players get sent off, especially in rugby union. They send someone off if they undercut a guy in the air catching the ball. It plays on. Latrell Mitchell gets the ball and scores. And Klein has the nerve
after that
to send it to the video to the bunker as no try for the contest. So if you're sending it up as no try, you thought that he fouled Nickel Klostad. So why aren't you blowing a penalty? Because if Latrell gets tackled, then it's going to be Roosters playing on with a fresh set. So it's ridiculous. And then they look at it and somehow clear the contact. I can't understand that. So I hate to harp on it. But in a game that's that close and you give them 6 points when the on-field ref and then the bunker both fuck up essentially. But in saying all that, I spoke about how the theme of this round was the late tries that killed us and the late tries we couldn't get. And this was another game where the Raiders were coming for them. Late pressure, repeat sets, knocking on the door. And you credit where credit's due because the Roosters turned them away time and again. And one thing about the Roosters, although they still can get even stronger with rep players back, I feel like the communication in defence and the way that they defend as a unit, when the Raiders got opportunities where they swung it wide, especially off a fast play the ball, lesser sides get opened up, but the Roosters handled it so well. Even when they were short a man, they slide and they communicate so well when they're outnumbered, and they saved like multiple tries this afternoon. The Raiders, literally get brought down a couple inches short of the try line multiple times late in that game. And again, if they score that, we would have flipped a couple of losses into winners there too. But it wasn't to beat, and another tough loss for us.
Indeed, and that is the round, and that settles it. It is confirmed what we thought at the very start of the season. The Storm and the Roosters will finish 1 and 2 on the ladder, and they will probably play each other. Well, they will play each other in the grand final again. But that's what we thought at the beginning of the season. It seems like that is all coming to fruition again. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Not the best round, obviously, but I think we're getting back on track. I still think that we were on the right side more times than not. Just got a little bit unlucky here and there, and certainly didn't lose too much money. That's for sure. So we'll be back again next week. Hopefully, we can turn things around and have another winning week. It's been a little while now for us. So, Jacob, anything you wanted to add before we get out of here?
No, I racked my brain and literally go through all the endings of the games this week. None really ended. None ended the way we wanted. It's a hard luck tale. Even the games we won, it's a hard luck tale that we didn't win more. You look at all that and you think, geez, they got unlucky in every finish of the game, and you still come out 10 and 14.
True.
So it could be worse, and I don't think we're doing too bad. So I think a big round is right around the corner. So we just got to keep working hard. There's plenty more footy ahead too.
Indeed, and still 56% for the season, which certainly is still making money. So we will see you guys on Wednesday at 6 p.m. to break down round 22. We're in the home stretch. Certainly, make sure you've downloaded the Tripod app. Make sure you're in our Facebook group, Tripod Punters Tips Forum. And we'll catch you Wednesday at 6 p.m. See you then.